Marcus Hayes was on his knees scrubbing the marble floors of the Belmont Tower at 2 in the morning, his hands raw and cracked when he heard the scream. Most people would have ignored it, kept their heads down, finished their shift, gone home to their daughter waiting in their cramped studio apartment. But Marcus wasn't most people. He dropped his mop and ran toward the sound echoing through the executive parking garage. What he found there would shatter everything he thought he knew about his life. A woman in a designer suit was collapsed against a silver Mercedes, clutching her chest, her face turning blue. Her eyes were wide with terror, darting around frantically as she gasped for air. Marcus recognized her immediately, Victoria Belmont, the billionaire CEO whose name was on the building he cleaned every night. The woman who'd walked past him 1,000 times without a single glance. She was choking, dying right in front of him, and they were completely alone. Marcus didn't hesitate. He rushed to her side, positioned himself behind her, and performed the Heimlich maneuver. 1 thrust, 2 thrusts, 3, but nothing was working. Her body was going limp. He was losing her. In a split-second decision that would change everything, Marcus tilted her head back and performed rescue breathing. His lips pressed against hers, forcing air into her lungs between compressions. 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Then suddenly, she coughed violently, a piece of food dislodging from her throat, and she collapsed into his arms, gasping, alive, trembling. Victoria looked up at him with tears streaming down her face and whispered 2 words, "You saved me." Before Marcus could respond, security cameras were already recording. Before dawn broke, the footage had leaked, and by morning, Marcus Hayes, the invisible janitor, the single father working 3 jobs to feed his daughter, was plastered across every news channel in the country. But the headline wasn't "Hero Janitor Saves CEO." It was "Janitor Assaults Billionaire, Inappropriate Contact Caught on Camera." Marcus watched in horror as his act of courage was twisted into something sinister. Social media exploded. Commentators debated whether he'd taken advantage of the situation. His face was everywhere, but not as a hero, as a predator. He was fired within hours. His daughter Sarah cried herself to sleep asking why people were calling her daddy a bad man. Everything he'd built, every sacrifice he'd made, destroyed in an instant because he dared to save a life while being poor. For 3 days, Marcus lived in a nightmare. His phone wouldn't stop ringing with death threats. Reporters camped outside his apartment. He couldn't find work. He couldn't feed his daughter. He sat on his bathroom floor at midnight, staring at his last $17, wondering how saving someone's life had become his greatest mistake. But he didn't know that behind the scenes, Victoria Belmont was watching, and she was furious. On the 4th day, Victoria called a press conference. Every major outlet attended. She walked to the podium, looked directly into the cameras, and spoke with a voice that could cut steel. "Marcus Hayes performed CPR and saved my life when I was dying alone in a parking garage. The narrative that's been spread about this man is not just wrong, it's evil. I am alive because of his courage, his training, his humanity, and I will not allow his heroism to be turned into a weapon against him." Then she did something no one expected. She announced she was creating the Marcus Hayes Foundation, starting with a $10 million donation to provide scholarships for working parents pursuing education. She offered Marcus a position as the foundation's director with a 6-figure salary. And she publicly sued every outlet that had defamed him. The world watched as the narrative flipped overnight. Apologies poured in, job offers flooded his phone. Sarah's school held an assembly in his honor. Marcus stood in Victoria's office 2 weeks later, staring at a contract that would change his family's life forever, tears streaming down his face. Victoria smiled and said, "You saw me as a human being when I needed help. That's rarer than you think. Now let me return the favor." 1 kiss meant to save a life. 1 moment of courage in the darkness. 1 man who refused to walk away. And everything changed. Not just for Marcus, but for everyone watching who'd ever been invisible, who'd ever been judged, who'd ever wondered if doing the right thing still mattered in this world.